Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast talking about all things in software development, except for last week we talked about game development, which is software development, but more about my story arc. So, yeah, that checks out. We kind of did. It is a podcast about software development, Frank.
Software development and personal development. Hi,
Yeah.
James. I am
Hello.
Frank. No, that was fun. I rarely get to interview you because I'm mostly narcissistic and don't really care about anyone but myself. So it was fun to pretend to care about someone else. It was great.
No, I know that you deep down do care about me, just like I deep down care about you, Frank. We are recording this on the 10th. Yesterday was the 9th, but last Thursday was the 5th, which means Nintendo Switch Day. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, I forgot we have to do this. I even did a bunch of research on the Switch too. I wanted to be up to date so I could talk about it. I it's very pretty, James. I hear it's both bigger and faster than the previous Switch, thus awarding the number 2 to its title.
Well, we definitely have to get to WWDC, so we will TLDR this. We happened to be out of town when the Switch came. We were out for visiting some of Heather's coworkers on the coast, and the Switch arrived at the house from Walmart. They delivered at 6 a.m. And I was like, asked my neighbor to put it in the garage because we weren't getting back for 2 more days. And we're in a pretty small town, but there was a Fred Meyer in this town, and they have electronics because it's basically the Walmart of grocery stores.
Yeah.
Fred Meyer's, for people who don't know what we talked about, is like Walmart is an everything store plus a little with plus grocery, where Fred Meyer's is a grocery store plus everything else.
With a nice electronics section, though. Like, back when I was buying Xbox games on physical media, I went to the Fred Meyer. I don't even know why. There was a game something down the street, but I still went to the Fred Meyer. I don't know. They just always had a good electronics section.
It's right there. And I was out walking Millie in the morning, and I was like, oh, Switch came, and texted Heather. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call Fred Meyer's and just see if they have it. I called them up, and they're like, it's a small town. So that they're like, yeah, we got some. I was like, right now, they're just like sitting there. They're like, yeah, they're just sitting there. I was like, all right, so I come down. So now I got 2 Switch 2s. I don't know what to do with the other one. So
God. You're such a Nintendo person. Well, let me we'll get to it because you said TLDR. But what games did you get? Did you get the Super Mario Kart World Plus?
Yep.
And did you get the? Did you have to pay for the new Zelda to get like the HD effect, or if you own the old one, did you get the new HD stuff?
Great question. So I bought Super Mario Kart World, which came in the bundle. So it was $50 for the digital download, which was very good. And I also bought Fast RMX, which is a high speed, like F-Zero type of racer. I haven't played it yet, but it looks really beautiful. And it's like $15.
2 racing games.
2 racing games, yes.
Okay. Just
very
checking.
different. Yeah. One's futuristic craziness and the other one's there. So then the other part is that there are 2 different types of Nintendo Switch online, kind of like Xbox Live subscriptions. There's a standard, which is like $35, and then a standard plus expansion pack, which I think is like $50 or $60 a year, $50 a year. If you have the upgraded one, so like Nintendo Switch Plus, basically, you get all of the upgraded Zelda and Kirby and all the other packs basically for free. You don't own them, but you get them while you have the subscription. Else it's $10. I did download it. I haven't played it yet, but from early impressions of the internet, it is very good. And I'm excited about that. Mario Kart World, absolutely delightful. I'm a big Mario Kart fan myself. It is huge open world exploration, going around and doing stuff if you just want to do, but it has also all the standard stuff. Multiplayer online, really good. Here's my TLDR is like, I am pleasantly surprised by everything. I got the webcam, which is like a super...
Oh, did you?
It's a super cute webcam.
Works.
Look at that. That's cute webcam. I got 2 of them. So I have one in the main living room and one in the office. Because it has 2 USB-C, so you can just plug it in. But also, I just plugged in a normal webcam and it worked just fine, by the way.
Okay.
So as long as it's like as long as it's a lower end, like 1080p or lower, you can't like plug in a 4K camera. But what's cool is that the C button works great for game chat. Game chatting with Jesse and Aaron and a bunch of people, and you show up on the screen and it like crops you out and does an overlay. The microphone in it is fantastic, even with background
Mm,
noise. Like there's a microphone built in, and like
right.
Jesse was way far away, and I could totally hear him fine with background noise and everything. It does all the cancellation with the NVIDIA chip that's in. Jensen Wong talked about it. Super cool. I've been playing mostly handheld, prop mode, but also on the TV. I only have a 1080p TV, but it looks fantastic. It is big. It's much bigger than I thought. Not Steam Deck big,
Yeah.
but big. Um, but I love playing it like propped up with like a pro controller hanging out or the
Mm.
Joy-Con separately. And I did play it in bed last night for an hour and it was fine, but it is pretty big, a little heavier than the smaller one. I think I like the smaller one. We can do a side by side comparison. This is the Switch OLED. There you go. And then this would be the Switch 2. So if you're on the YouTubes, you can.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so bigger's better. I know everyone loves bigger, but it is getting into that iPad 10-inch kind of range, isn't it? It's getting close.
So like if you did like the overlay, it kind of fits inside of it. You know, it's pretty big. It's not ginormously big, but it is relatively big. So it does feel a
Yeah.
lot bigger in the hands. The kickstand's really good. It's got 256 storage, about another 256 card. It uses the SD Express. It's really fast. In fact, loading games off the internal storage is the fastest, SD card the second, and then a physical game the slowest. Funnily enough, physical game card. But that all works really good. And also, here's a crazy thing: they have this thing called Game Share. So if you and I were playing online, I can literally stream my game to you, to your system where you can play in real time with me. Jesse and I did it, and it is crazy. And I think the
Okay.
funnest part of it is like if you and I are gaming right now, we can not only share webcam and audio, but you can also share your screen. It's only like 10 or 15 frames per second, but I can view you. I can just watch you game, and it's just like fun. Like I don't know, it's just a blast just to hang out. Like, yeah, what's going on? Just with your friends. I don't know. It's really cool. So all that stuff seems to work good. It's way faster. TLDR is if you don't have a Switch and you're thinking about getting a Switch, I would get the Switch too. If you just recently got a Switch in the last year or two, I don't think you need to upgrade this moment.
I was gonna say, wait for the OLED.
Actually, the
No?
LCD
Huh?
is really, it's a very nice LCD.
Okay. I've seen the
I,
side by sides though, and when you see it at an angle, the OLED's
yeah,
looking pretty hot.
the OLED is very nice. I would say it's in between the original Switch screen and the OLED screen, so it's in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, if you if you don't have one, or if you just bought a Switch in the last year or two, I don't know if you need to upgrade like immediately, unless you wanted to do all the multiplayer stuff, which is cool. But you can still like play, if we were playing a multiplayer game, because it's all the games are backwards compatible. If we're playing Splatoon or whatever, that would work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like me, when you had a Switch from day one and you got the OLED and you have the stuff, like it's definitely like a really nice upgrade and is cool. And I would say the system transfer, everything transferred immediately. And they have this really cool thing, which is like virtual game cards. So if you downloaded a game, you basically can pop it out of one system, pop it in to the other system. So I could take this one on the road with me, and then this one, if I'm going to take this one to Spain for .conf Spain, I'm going to leave this one, the actual Switch 2 home. I'm not ready to travel with it yet.
Oh.
It's too new. It's too new. So yeah, it's
Okay.
cool.
Pretty
It's a great
good. Pretty
system.
good.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a fun fact I learned?
Yes.
So we had talked about whether you could play old games on the new system or not. So Nintendo's backwards compatibility layer, and
Yep.
I was getting annoyed because no one was talking about like low level, how does it work or anything
Yeah.
like that. So in the past, if you have two CPUs that are the same architecture, whatever, you just run the same code on it. Maybe they downclock one of the CPUs or something like that. In this case, they actually upgraded the CPU. So what I learned is they took a little page out of Apple's book and they did a little bit of Rosetta magic, and
Yeah.
on the fly they're recompiling for for the new CPU from the old CPU. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of cool that that hot Rosetta, and I forget what Windows has its own technology for this also. It's kind of fun that that's making its way to game consoles. Now the downside is they're charging you for that. From what I understand, it used to be free. Nowadays you got to pay for it. But that's a downside. But at least it's still kind of cool that they're doing that on the fly transpilation. to do it. Just as a
Yeah.
nerd, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, like all your games will work. And in fact, without doing anything, if there's no patches, almost all the games will work.
95%.
Yeah, 95. The
From
one,
what I've
yeah.
read.
Yeah. Like in general. And like something like Arkham Knight, which apparently ran pretty bad on the Switch, like gets a huge upgrade with no patches or anything because of this, because it's just more powerful. So it can, get, basically better frame rate, those take advantage of the upgraded CPU. But things like Zelda, which has the $10 upgrade, they've actually done additional work, right? So it's not just like they actually upgraded textures and redid new assets for it, and they added features too. So in the case of, I think, Kirby, it's like a $20 or $15 expansion. It's like not just an upgrade, but it's also like another expansion pack on top of it. So it's like upgrade plus expansion, like DLC. So that's kind of nice. They just announced Splatoon 3 is just going to get a free upgrade for like improved textures and performance. So yeah, they're kind of rolling that out, but like apparently like Cyberpunk like is like awesome on it, and they like used a bunch of cool things. Yeah, I'm interested. Yeah, because normally how things work is normally work is up till the Switch. Basically, what Nintendo did is they would literally have two sets of hardware inside. Right. So that's you don't have to emulate or do anything. You just literally
you put your Game Boy inside the Game Boy Advance. Yeah.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that worked. But obviously in this case, that doesn't really work with these systems.
Nowadays, it's a little expensive. You can't just stretch the memory bus out like that. Things are a little more complicated nowadays.
Anyways, Nintendo Switch 2, 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Buy it for a friend. Buy it for yourself. 10 out of 10. I give everything from Nintendo a 10 out of 10. So yeah, it's really good. I don't know. I mean, it's exactly what I thought. It's like, I'm just going to give it a 10 out of 10. It's Nintendo anyways, but it's super good. I'm impressed. Everything seems to work. And like, the online, like, so that's the surprise is like Nintendo has historically not been great about like migration, upgrade, backwards compatibility, online gaming, friends codes, all this stuff, game invites. It's the first time they had game invites, and it all just kind of works. And you're like, oh, okay, I see you, Nintendo. You caught up to 2020. No, not even 2020.
Whatever we're up to.
Yeah, 2010. You know what I mean? So you're like, oh wow, it all works. So, anyways.
Speaking of 2010, I think the Switch 2 has inspired me to finally go buy gaming. I don't even know what you call them. Gaming sticks, gaming editions for iOS devices. I always forget this, but there are like nice little iOS devices that basically are the little Switch game pads that go on the left and right hand side of your iPhone and turn your iPhone into. Sure, let's call it
That's
that.
what it's called. Backbone.
Is it the Backbone?
Yeah. Backbone. That's the name of the company. Yeah. No, they're really nice.
Everyone makes it now. Yeah. So there's actually a whole variety from $30 up to $100 of however much you want to spend for whatever Hall effect sensors you want. Anyway, I have to say, like, after watching about like 5 hours of videos reviewing the Switch 2, I'm like, I'm gonna go get some game sticks for my iPhone because like now I want to play some video games and I don't want a second device. But yeah,
cool. The reviews have been pretty split. I would say no one's like disappointed, but I think some people are like just like me are like it's amazing, right? And then some people are like it feels incremental, and I'm like, well, I feel like it is like a Switch 1 to a Switch 2. It's not a Switch 1.5. That's what it doesn't feel like that.
It's a Game Boy Color to the Game Boy. Like, does color matter to you? That's the way I'm seeing it because I accused it of being incremental, but at the same time, hardware has plateaued. I hate to say it, but like it's all in the software these days.
It is.
Nintendo is known for revolutionizing, coming out with revolutionary new interaction modes. You know, they had the Wii thing and all that, but we're not there, and they're not doing VR for whatever reason.
They got the mouse mode. You can turn your Joy-Con into a mouse.
Mode.
Yeah.
Welcome to
that does work.
1990.
Yes. Anyways, well, let's get into WWDC. I watched both the keynote and the developer keynote, which is the only one that actually really matters. I think that here's my takeaway. I'll get your quick take of the keynote because obviously I've worked and I'm part of the .NET Conf keynote team.
Right.
I walked across the bridge last year, as you remember.
Yeah.
Are we over super highly polished, crazy videos of Craig Federighi and me walking? I think I'm over it.
Yeah, well, he was
What about you?
promoting an F1 car. Were you promoting an F1 car? So
I
here's
was
the thing.
I was promoting the new bridge on the Microsoft campus, which is pretty cool and eco-friendly.
I do love to compliment, we love to compliment their production value in these conferences. This is the first year, maybe it's the first time my internet worked well. It looked a little green screeny. I
Heather said the
wasn't
same thing. She was like, this is not them." I'm like, "No, this is them." She's like, "This is not them." She's like, "This is not the
No, that
background."
was very green, and they've obviously been doing green screen for a long time, but,
Yeah.
something about, the environments they picked, or maybe they fired the lighting guy from the last one and they got a new
Yeah.
lighting intern. I don't know what it was, but it had a green screen look to it this time, and enough to the point where I was a little distracted, I have to say. I was looking at the
Yeah.
edges of Tim versus
Yes.
Tim more than
Right?
I usually do.
And it was even Heather pointed out when they were doing the Xcode demos and the developer keynote, when there was two people on, it got really
Mhm.
awkward because of like the focal point and the focus, and like they were obviously standing in very things, and everyone is putting their hands and just right in front of them. I know they've always done that,
Yeah.
but um,
Well,
I
they're coached to
yeah,
the nth degree, so you can almost see the coaching
yeah,
happening and the little thought process in the back of their heads of the coach yelling at them as they're doing the presentation.
Tim's back there. Oh. Um,
But,
I
okay,
yeah,
as a presentation, though, I think it was great. Federici, yeah, is that his name? God, I don't know
Craig
why it sounds so
Federighi. Yeah,
weird.
you're right.
Yeah.
You got it.
Um he did one cute one where he pulled up in the F1 and another one where he was in, like, a little golf cart or something like that, and he pulled off both very well. So I think that they're all getting very comfortable being presenters and all that. And I would say that the keynote flowed very well because usually there's parts where I just fully check out. It's usually during Apple Watch, it's usually during Apple Music, things like that, or when they're doing some stupid TV Plus promo or something like
Yeah.
that where I just check out. And I'd say I made it to the end of this one to the point where when they started rolling credits, I was like, oh, no more one more thing. We're not doing that this year.
Yeah.
And so I would think like from a flow, from a production value, they kept me hooked. I
I
was
think
there for most of it.
I think the segments between all of them were really good. I was kind of taking note of like how much time did they spend on Xcode? How much time did they spend on Swift? How much time did they spend on Apple? Like I was like, okay, like how are they fitting in these different segments? Um, I would say I think Techmeme Ride Home did a great recap of it afterwards. They did like he did like, 15, 20 minutes on it. And then he's like, and my favorite thing is like, well, I watched it, I recapped it, I just talked about it. And I guess, yeah, there's nothing that I can really even remember of what they even announced. It's like
Oh,
they
that's
announced a
rough.
bunch. They announced
Well,
a
they're
bunch
not
of
a
things.
developer. They're a yeah. I
He's a
mean, this is
developer.
the hard part. Is he?
I
Okay.
mean, at his
Well,
core, I mean, he
if
works with
you're
developers. Yeah,
I would say my biggest compliment to this one is I played the same drinking game as I played with the Microsoft one. Every time
yeah,
someone said an agent, I just took a shot. And you know what? I was sober the entire time. Leave it to Apple to like always find
yeah,
a new way to talk about something. So I was bone dry by the end and I was like, I
yeah.
kind of miss being drunk during the Microsoft one. But
Yeah, I think they announced a bunch of cool things. I think in general, nothing to me was like super exciting. And I think there are some exciting parts that we're going to talk about because you did a whole video on probably what I'm most
yeah,
excited about.
yeah.
But I actually think, I mean, I need to see you have liquid glass in your hand. I need to see liquid glass and Icon Composer, all these things. Like, I
Do you
think
want
that
to?
I don't think I was like, was it different on camera versus in hand? And I assume it's not. But I would say, here's my thing. Here's my TLDR. And I know I work for Microsoft. I know I'm a Windows person. I am, and I said this a few months ago.
What are you, James?
I'm just a little disappointed.
Are you? I'm not. I was happy. I thought this felt like a very developer focused one. Whereas I feel like the Microsoft conference was very enterprise focused. I feel like this one was talking to indie devs like myself.
Mm,
So I actually felt very seen in this one. Whereas the
nice.
Microsoft one, I felt very unseen because it was a bunch of enterprise tools and data warehousing and all that kind of stuff that I just don't care about. Whereas this I felt was very app developer focused. Now you can say these are consumer events. So we have the keynote, which is supposed to be a press and consumer event. And then there's the platform State of the Union, which is, as you called it, the developer keynote, which is
Yeah.
where you're actually talking to the developers.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't care about the press and consumer side, but I felt, I don't know, each of the features they brought up, I could think about ways of integrating into my apps. So every little feature, I'm like, oh, okay, I could add that. I could add that. Oh, they're expanding the intent system. They're finally doing this. There were a lot of hashtag finallys in it, as in we've been waiting
Yeah.
for Apple to do it, and they did it. So it's like, thank you. So I get where you could be underwhelmed because it was definitely incremental, except for a few areas we'll get to. But I don't know. I felt a lot more seen in this event than in the Microsoft and Google ones. The Google one was consumer focused, not dev at all. The
Yeah.
Microsoft one was enterprise focused, not devs. This one felt like devs to me.
Yeah, I guess, did you watch the day 2 developer keynote from Build?
Day 2. Wait, there's 2 days of this conference. So one thing I do like
at
is
Build. Yeah.
yeah, okay, fair enough. I don't know. At dev conference, you should open on your strong stuff. Don't leave that for day 2. I One thing I liked about the Apple event is they just dropped all the videos too. So
Yeah, I do like
I
that.
was able to just burn through everything. Whereas in the past, they like spaced it out as if you were at a virtual conference. I'm
Yeah.
like, no one's got time for this. Just drop those videos. You know, they're all pre-recorded. So I really appreciate they just blopped out all the videos and I could just burn through whatever technologies I was interested in.
Yeah, I think in general, I think that the developer keynote, the state of the platform, I feel like pretty similar to you in that instance. I just feel like, I think that's interesting about our podcast is, and us in general, is that I think you and I have slightly diverged a little bit of like our interest in the different developer space. Like I am less interested in like a lot of the little shiny little things that they're going to add to their app, because it's like, that's probably not what I'm going to add to my app. Right. At least the ones that I'm developing. So like, I feel like because I haven't really transformed my apps, like what I develop in a while, where like you're pretty deep. It's like you're very deep in iOS and Mac, like coordinated development. You always have been. So I can see your exact perspective of why you're like, yeah, I can see like, oh, that and that. So for me, I'm like, nah, I don't really see it. Like, I don't feel it. But it's not like that's unique to Apple, right? I don't really feel that about Google. I don't really feel that about like Windows. You know what I mean? Like just in general, I feel like things are pretty good. So I feel like I've drunk a lot of the more recent Kool-Aid of all of that big AI stack, tech, agents, things. So that's why I think I was excited about not just the day 1 and the day 2 of Microsoft keynote, because I work at Microsoft, but like that is what got me jazzed. Even like a lot of the Google, like Gemini stuff, like that sparked a lot of my interest, which is why the foundational model stuff that you talked about, like also sparked my interest as well. And some of the Xcode stuff that they're doing. But I think all like the liquid glass stuff and all like the game stuff and Mac stuff, like I don't know.
Let's
what I mean?
start there.
That's my TLDR. Yeah.
Let's talk about liquid glass for a minute, because here's where I'll join you in being a cynic, because for all this user interface, user design, user experience talk that everyone has about creating good user interfaces for apps, this was the most silly pixel shader discussion I've ever heard in my life. And it's good that we were having the conversation we had the previous week about you writing game pixel shaders, because they're talking about the whole redesign of iOS. Oh, by the way, everything's version 26 now. That's new.
26.
But in the end, all they did was change the pixel shaders that they're running for buttons and controls. And you see a lot of Apple people online saying like, no, they're entering a third dimension of UIs. And they had the silly like hunks of acrylic sitting on the table while you slide a giant hunk of acrylic over a printed poster. I'm like, it's something. I don't know what it is, but in my mind, it's just a pixel shader. And I saw all of this in not even Windows Vista, in Windows Longhorn, baby. Like I'm talking 2003, 2004. They were running those kinds of pixel shaders. They didn't actually make it into the product. They didn't even make it into Vista. So I've seen this glass effect before. I've seen people try it. I've seen frosted glass. I've seen refracted glass. I've seen all of the attempts.
I got all the glass.
And
Yeah, you got
I've
glass
seen
blocks. I got glass blocks in the bathroom. I got you covered.
You know what the very first pixel shader you write is? Caustics and glass effects. So
It's
it's like
it's
I'm just
it's
rolling my eyes.
glass effects and water effects. Those are like
Yeah,
the two. Those are
caustics.
the
Yeah.
yeah. Is that what caustics are? Okay, you're using
Yeah,
fancy
yeah.
words. Caustics. Yeah, that's all
Caustics
it
is
is.
when the refraction index changes as you
Oh,
move through the
that's
material.
yes, exactly. And I was doing that with nebula space gas.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
same.
Geometry Wars had this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's cute, but like iOS is still iOS. It still has the same way you put widgets on the screen. The icons are still roughly in the same place. They just changed a few of the effects. Some better, some worse. You can say it was one prettier, is one different, but they were saying this is the biggest design change since iOS 7, and that's just not true. iOS 7 threw away years of beautiful beautiful textured materials
The
and turned
skeuomorphic
everything into
baby.
flat. And
Yeah.
now instead of everything being flat, now everything is flat and a few things get a magnification effect. Whip de doo. So
Yeah.
I'll join you in the cynicism there. Um, I I feel so about glass. Glass feels like one of those things that'll grow on you. Everyone's making fun of it because honestly, they just haven't tuned it very well at this point. If you have a bright background, a lot of text gets washed out.
Yeah.
It's not frosted glass, it's clear glass. It's liquid glass. And so there's just a what used to get blurred in a vibrant view material and now comes through shiny clear. So you're going to have to work on your apps and you're going to have to work to make sure your apps look good. All I could honestly think during that was, oh God, I'm going to have to redo all my apps to make sure they look good in glass. So
It's
it's a new pixel shader, but it's also a bit of work for devs.
well, yeah, you said like, Vista had it, but also in Windows 11, there is, and part of the Fluent UI design has transparent, frosted, glassy
Hmm.
look. I forget what it's called, but it is very similar. And a lot of the Windows apps have, it's different. It's different. It's different. But I'm saying like
Yeah.
the see-through design paradigm, and this one is raised up and it's in all the UI. I'm really fascinated to see because this is one of those recompile, see how it looks, and you got a year to figure it
Hmm.
out basically. Um, I do like the new icon composer. I think that's good. Could have been a Figma extension, but that is nice. I'm glad that
Oh,
we have one. I think it's great that we have
let's say
one. Everyone should have one.
the most important part of there is that they support vector icons. Let's just be
Yes.
clear, because now I don't have to do 8 million versions of my
That
icon. I can just give it some SVGs and just be done with
yeah.
it.
Icon composer is the unsung hero of this developer conference. I like I know it sounds silly and Heather and I were even joking
Yeah.
about it, but I was like, you know what? I hate icons. I hate icons. And like
Yeah.
the one thing that is nice about .NET MAUI is you give it an SVG, it'll figure it out for
Mhm.
you. The nice thing, even now with like Android, like it just has the layers and just give it a layer, give it a background layer, it'll
Yeah.
figure it out for you. They've done that. Thank you, Apple. Makes my life
Yeah.
easier. If we get one standardization for app icons across all the operating systems, that would be beautiful. Bingo bango.
And this was a hashtag finally because with Vision Pro, we've been creating layered icons for a while now. And
Yeah.
it seems silly to me that iOS didn't support layered icons because it's an obvious move.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I am a little bit sad about is that in the demos, they had all these good parallax effects where as you rotate the camera, things change and you get a good 3D effect. In practice, and it's a beta, things change in a beta, but man, it is hard to see the difference. They really dialed back all that
Mm,
parallax effect, and that's been baked into iOS for actually a long time. You could take advantage of that.
mm,
I would say it doesn't give nearly the 3D effect I think that they're promoting in all their videos. But if you have like an image and there's a glass thing over the image, you notice that glass. It looks great. If you have a glass thing over a solid color, guess what? It looks like just another flat design thing with a weird border on it.
yeah.
And so it's really context dependent on whether it looks good or not.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see how it all shakes out. And I don't know if I'm not gonna, maybe I'll public preview when that comes. I'm not gonna dev preview. I don't think this summer. I just have an older phone. Like I have an
Well,
iPhone
oh,
11. So
well, let's get this part out of the way. Have you upgraded any devices, James?
nothing. I refuse.
Nothing. I did everything. I thought you were
Yeah.
all in last year.
I was all in last year. This year, not as much. Now, I will say, I may upgrade for the foundational models framework because I'm very
Yeah,
interested in that.
just to test
Um,
my apps.
yeah, I'm really interested in it. So Apple Intelligence, there was not a lot of it in general. Do think that we'll talk about app intents and shortcuts and a few things, which I think is the foundation of what they're laying, which makes sense. The foundation. I think that's their idea. No? Okay, I'm wrong. Okay, but let's
Nah.
talk about foundational models. And you did a great video on it, and then I reminded you that also this is similar to what we talked about at the build recap with the Windows AI
Yeah.
Foundry and the AI local models that are in Copilot Plus PCs, but this is different. Um, um, where like there's Windows APIs to do this. Now with foundational models, it's kind of like the Microsoft extensions AI for local models that are going to be on our devices. You know what devices, but it's basically they're shipping a model on device that developers can just use in their applications to do certain things. You used
No,
it.
everything.
I'm probably
Everything.
underplaying it. Let me
You
know.
are very underplaying it.
Cool.
This is
Because
a
they kind of
really
underplayed
big
it. They
deal.
underplayed it. They underplayed it, I
No,
think.
I disagree.
No, I don't think so. Okay,
What
all
they
right.
underplayed was Siri,
Oh, yeah,
because what
yeah.
they
We're
started
talking.
with is, hey, we're going to improve Siri, but we don't have anything to talk about there, so stay tuned for a year, and we'll talk
Yeah.
more about Siri. No, I think foundation models is a huge deal. So I have been a proponent for running models locally on machines, on your own machine for a long time.
Yeah.
Uh, Honestly, number one is price. Because right now I have to pay Microsoft or OpenAI or Google or Anthropic dollars per token in order to run models. Now, on
Mm-hmm.
everyone's phone, they will be able to execute large language models essentially for free and baked into the OS. So you can have some certainty that it's going to exist. If the user hasn't downloaded it, you can just point them to the settings like, hey, please go click this checkbox in the settings app. I think this is a huge deal for developers because before, if I wanted to run a large language model, I had to do all sorts of gross things. I had to download that model myself, which meant every app would have to download a 2 GB model because that's just how it is. Apps can't share data. I would have to go through the misery of running one of the many open source projects that can execute on the phone, none of which are tuned for the hardware correctly. I promise you, I've run every single one of them. I've worked in this for a long time. None of them correctly use the hardware. Most of them were GPU based. Very few of them could run on the neural engine. And now, as app developers, I just have a large language model sitting there in the background that I can use and deploy in my apps. That is a huge thing. I don't have to ask the user to go sign up for OpenAI. I don't have to charge them per token. I don't have to do any of that nonsense. I can just start providing advanced AI features within my app. It's that simple. And so I think this is a huge win for developers. Now, yeah, you reminded me Windows did this. Windows beat Apple to it, but it's only for a few PCs out there. This is on every iPhone, not every iPhone,
That's the
all
big
modern
win. Yeah.
iPhones, all
Modern
modern
iPhones.
Macs, all modern
Yeah.
Vision Pros. But modern within the last 3 or 4 years, they all, and anyone that has a sophisticated enough neural engine, basically, and enough RAM. So the 12 Pro and up, basically, and that's. I think I said that wrong. The 14 Pro and up.
14 Pro.
Yeah.
15.
That's a. I think it's
15
14 Pro.
Pro. No, Heather has
Well,
the
okay.
14
Everyone
Pro.
double check me on
15
all
Pro.
these things.
The last 2 years Pro Plus. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a really big thing to standardize on
Yeah.
that. Back in the video game world, not everyone had a GPU. And it was a big deal when Quake came out and said, you got to have a GPU. We're going to write a software render, but you're going to get 10 frames a second and it's going to suck.
Yeah.
And so when Quake came out and pushed, hey, everyone's going to have a GPU and you're going to run on that GPU, that was an explosion of the industry, which oddly enough led to the AI revolution. So I think having this availability to every app developer that can take advantage of an LLM without having to do any server nonsense, without sending people's data off to some random server, keeping it all local, works without an internet connection. Every app can share the same model. This is a huge win, and this is a huge advancement for the industry.
I think it's probably the biggest thing that they announce, in my opinion. I agree with you. Like, while I'm downplaying it a little bit, because obviously there's stress testing to do on it. You did some great analysis, which I really enjoyed as well. Like, what's the capabilities? But they packed great features. They have streamable output, awesome. I think they have tool calling built in, which is also really cool. That's basically
Structured
MCP.
output
It's basically
makes
MCP. No,
Yep,
you
sorry.
ruined it. That's my favorite. Structured
Oh, I'm
output.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So, so,
You
so
went to
definitely
tools
just
first. I was like, you're talking about tools.
structured data. I think is super good. I think is really neat, and I love the demo
Yeah.
of that. That was probably my favorite part. Was this part with it in general was really messing around with those features. So I agree with you, and I think that what I'm saying is I think that they sort of well they talked about it. I think you sold it better than they sold it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Is like I think
It's
they
honestly
undersold it a little bit.
It's honestly because I've been waiting for this for the last 4
It's
years.
super good. It's super
I've
good.
been putting large language models on my own devices for a long time now.
Yeah.
And I can tell you I overheated, like you could feel the phone physically get hot in your hand.
Yeah.
And then it would crash after a context length of like 1,000 tokens because I would just run out of memory. And Apple honestly doesn't provide good ways to measure the amount of memory that you're using and all that kind of stuff. And so to just have a debugged large language model just sitting there. And yeah, so I made a little video on it, and I'll say it's not the greatest large language model. It's like the original Chat GPT level of
Yeah.
model,
It's not trying
and
to be.
but
It's not claiming to be.
yeah, and the beauty is, if you want, of course, you can make a web call and use any API and access any of the much larger models sitting out there. But it's just wonderful that on everyone's device is sitting what is basically table stakes. Apple is raising, I'm mixing all the metaphors now. They're raising the bar, they're raising the hurdle bar, they're increasing the table stakes. Like these phones were internet connected, good old Steve Jobs, these things are internet devices, and now they're AI devices
Mm-hmm.
also. And I think that when Apple raises the table stakes like this, everyone has to play catch up. So I'm sure there'll be some local version of Gemini called Gemini Mini being on Android next year.
Yeah, and definitely anyone can write into us and let us know if Google did announce anything similar to this. I mean, obviously, Microsoft did with the Windows
Mhm.
AI Foundry and like the local models as well that are on Copilot Plus PCs. But that is the thing is there's a bajillion PCs, right? Compared to like every device, modern devices will get this. No, so I think it's super, super nice. The API looked very good. I'll link
Yeah.
to your video so people can dive further into it. Which is good. You tested story generation, SVG. I didn't see
Yeah.
it actually render the SVG. I just saw the SVG code.
Chalk that up to my laziness, not the neural network.
Okay,
Also,
I want to
I
see what
didn't
it
do
looked like.
structured output for the SVG,
Oh,
which would be the smart way to do it to force it
yeah,
into the SVG schema. I did,
smart.
yep. So I did story generation because I just wanted to see creativity. I
Yep,
did SVG generation. I did factual knowledge
that's
querying,
cool.
which it's important, right? If this is supposed to be the oracle of all knowledge, then it should be good at it. And you know what? It failed.
Yeah,
I gave it a B. I gave it an 80%. It passed 4 out of the 5 things I asked it to
not
query.
bad, not bad.
One of them, I don't know. Do you know the molecular formula of MSG? I didn't know it, but I had to compare. It didn't know it either. So, some things it's a little weak in, other things it's going to be strong in. So I would steer a little bit away from making it a factual database. But then I also asked it to do some vibe coding for me. I gave it a very boring, terrible description of an app I wanted. And, it generated a very boring, terrible version of that app,
But it
but
did
it
it.
worked. It was the
Yeah,
correct code,
that's
so
cool.
bravo. It's a
Yeah.
great starting point.
I think what'll be fun about this is like it's a little tiny model, like that the like the nanos and the 535 mini, like the mini models are like, okay, what is it going to do? Because the thing is, like with Olama or AI Foundry Local, right? You pull down these little models, and they're pretty small, like a few gigs, but you're pulling them down. But then you can do quite a lot with little tiny models like
Oh
these
yeah.
because they're still large language models, right? Or even SMLs or whatever, but they're still pretty good. So I was pretty impressed by what you got going in a very amount of time. I am sad that you didn't have it generate the code for the app in real time. Um,
Uh, Fair enough. I was trying to make a short video there.
that's
The
good.
video got longer and longer. But yeah, like imagine like you could kind of create a vibe coding IDE that runs purely locally. One of the things I see people complaining about, like the cursors and the windsurfers and all that stuff out there, is like, you spend 5 days in this app and all of a sudden you have $100 bill in the mail. So it's kind of nice that this is all free and very private because you're not uploading any of the data to the server.
Yeah, I think that I do think there'll be a renaissance, and I think we're already seeing the renaissance. And by renaissance, it's not even renaissance means it came back. So I think, well, it is because so it was like running
A
things on your
rebirth.
machine. It's a rebirth.
Mhm.
It's a spark of what will come next. But I think you're already seeing it with the Windows stuff, with this foundational model, is that you will, I believe, start to see more local models running on your machine doing more things. Like, I think that is
Yeah.
just it, again, because we need to empower everyone to do this. And the large language models can be like well fine-tuned. You can fine-tune your model
Yeah.
and do a bunch of stuff. And like, you need the data to do the big things. Like, you don't need Claude 4 for you to generate and ask it to write you a short story. Like, you don't need that. That's very inappropriate in some ways. Like, you can burn your local CPU up to do that. Like, and it's very quick to do it. So I think that was really good. I think that the other part of Apple Intelligence that I found very fascinating is all the app intents and the shortcut stuff. I feel like they're trying to, step one, get a bunch of apps to have app intents. So basically, they showed, like, you could say, go into shortcuts and say, M or SMS or whatever, and it'll be like, oh, iMessage, and it'll be like, okay, send a message to Frank, and you type it in, and it'll send it off, right? So I think there's a bunch of apps that do this. I think step one, get everything to record shortcuts. Step two, introduce Siri, where you talk to it, and it figures out how to call your shortcut. I think that's what they're going
Yeah.
to do. It's been rumored. I think that's what they're going to do. They're a year away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to see. If we use the modern parlance, app intents are the new MCP servers, or MCP servers are the new app intents. I don't even know which way to look at it because it's the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
But basically, every app has a set of things it can do, and you want to expose that to a smarter, more general thing, and it can make use of those tools. I'm curious how it'll shake out. I was shaking my head with app intents in the beginning when you were first mentioning them, just because I still find them to be a very limited model. I think
Yeah.
the MCP model, the new model, is far better. And people are always comparing it like, oh, it's just
Yeah.
calm, it's just Olay. Whenever someone uses the word just, give them the squinty eyes. Like, what
Yeah.
does just mean? Because I think MCP is better.
It is.
I didn't know we were going to use natural language for apps to communicate with each other, but here we are. It's 2025 and we're using
Dude,
English for apps to talk to each other.
I'm saying, I think so. Like, I think that's a world, like, and it's not 100% even there yet. So like, if Apple had done that and been like,
Yeah.
we integrated MCP support for blah blah blah, like, wow, because there's like MCP
That's
registries coming, all this stuff. Like, you have the Figma app. It just does. Like, I'm just saying, like,
that's what I would have liked to have
they're
seen. Like,
close. They're
I think
close.
they really did a good job with the tools calls with the Apple Foundation models. Like,
Yeah.
if you're writing code and you want to expose some features to the models, it's actually really easy. They made it very elegant how you can do that, but they didn't implement MCP. They didn't have a way for every Mac app to be an MCP server that the
That's a
Mac
bummer. Yeah.
AI could just talk to.
And
Like,
that's
that's
what
the world I want to be
that's the
in.
world.
That's what I want Windows to do. That's what
See,
I want Apple to do.
well,
That's what I want everyone to do.
so that's the thing, is like, what's really fascinating is there's Windows app intents as well, and Windows app intents are MCP compliant. So like,
Better. Yeah.
so that's the thing, is like, it's interesting. The foundation models, similar announcements across the board, but they got the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Then you have app intents, they have the ecosystem, but it's in their ecosystem, right? And it's
Yeah.
closed box, and you're like, man, I want my IDEs to talk to and this out and these, it's just like, oh, it's so close. And then they're just like, I don't know what happened there, but
And to just be more clear, like,
yeah,
these are two very different worlds. So, like,
yeah,
in iCircuit, I can now use the foundation model to do maybe some advanced little figure this out. The user wants this. I expose a data model to it. It figures some things out. It does it within the app. That is separate from, I have iCircuit installed on my machine, and I ask an AI outside of iCircuit to do something. It's like, oh, I see you have iCircuit. I'm just going to use that to figure out this thing. It's the
yeah,
external world versus the internal world. I think they
yes,
really nailed the internal world. They're
agreed.
not nailing the external world, but honestly, no one is right now. That's why I keep
It's a
calling it the Wild West.
And I think it's evolving really fast too, like all the MCP stuff with security and this and that. So like, it really depends. Like, I think it does make a lot of sense. Like, if they move a little bit slower, they'll see what happens, see how it shakes out. So maybe this time next year it'll be there, and then tons of MCP stuff will be everywhere else. I don't know.
It's also
Anyways,
Apple though. They don't like playing along.
that's my one fear. Okay. Apple
All right. Was that
Intelligence.
enough? Was that enough for the AI podcasts that we normally do? So should we move on to some other
I
things?
Well, Xcode 26 is here. They showed off. They have a coding companion now. They
Oh
have
yeah.
I just did that video on GitHub Copilot for Xcode. They now have stuff similar. It's kind of like a V1, I would say. I don't think
Yeah.
it's not quite agent mode. It's not some things, but it's pretty impressive for what they have so far. But it is I don't know if it's called Swift Assist or Copilot or Xcode
Let's go
Assist
with
or what
assistant. I think that's the
assistant
word I heard
coding
the most. Again, they
coding
refused the word
assistant.
to say. They refused to say agent, so I couldn't have one
Yeah.
drink during this thing. So
No
they called
agent
it the
mode.
assistant.
It kind
Yeah.
of feels like it's the early chat edit type of experience, but it's there. Again, it's
Mm-hmm.
integrated because they're going to be the only ones that can integrate it into their experience. So good on them. And there's that. Yeah, it is. What's fascinating, I think what's cool about it in general is that you can just start using it right away. You don't have to sign up for chat. It's powered by ChatGPT, but you don't have to sign up or do it, log in or anything. You just start using it. Classic Apple, very nice. Um, I thought this was very fascinating. So they have coding. You can ask you about the code. You can regenerate code for you. You got playground, documentation, all the stuff that you'd expect in 2025, our year of AI coding assistance. It doesn't look like maybe it's going to do the exploratory agent mode, talk to tools type of thing. I didn't see the MCP stuff obviously in there, so
Right.
not yet. It can do some vision. They showed that off. It is ChatGPT. It doesn't say what model it's using, so it's using some ChatGPT model. And then you can upgrade to a paid account, which you'd probably have to do. I'm assuming they're limiting to 50 premium requests like everyone else. Who knows? Or you can bring your own key. So to your point, while they have these models here, they're obviously not good enough for this. So if you want to use Anthropic or you want to use, I don't know if you can use Gemini. I didn't see Gemini on the list. But if you want to use other ones, you can bring your own key and then pay Anthropic to use it, which is very fascinating. The ChatGPT stuff, I think, is privacy first. I don't know about the other bring your own key stuff, but did you use it at all? Because you have the beta. Is it in there? Did you try it out?
I have to admit that I did not. That's one feature I have left to test. You got me using the Copilot with Xcode, and that puppy
Pretty
still
good.
works. So, I I'll let them mature their product a tiny bit more because Copilot's a little bit janky, to be honest. It's a separate app running, and it's always
Yeah.
complaining about losing its connection to Xcode and all that. But at the same time, Copilot, with its whole 2 years of existence, I've learned to trust. I know how it's going to behave. I know how that IDE is going to, or whatever, that I know how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty content with that for now. I will report back, though, on the Xcode assistant. I will say I I didn't do it right. I held it wrong. I tried to activate the Xcode assistant, and I went to like view show assistant, and some other 1980s Xcode UI came up, and I'm like, that's not what I was talking about. So I think they have to work on their marketing / menu system a little
it's like
better.
a button it's a button somewhere. And it was funny because I think the VS and VS Code team, I remember talking to them, and it's like the same thing. Like it was hard to find. There was from a drop down. So then they put the Copilot button, and they're like, even the people aren't clicking on the Copilot button. They're like, just open it. Just open it by default. You have to just open it. Just open it. Put it there. Just open it.
I don't have to ask for Solution Explorer. Just put it there, man.
Just put it there. And then when it opens, like, you want to bring this back up, click this button. Next time you want to open it again, just put it there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on Xcode 26? Xcode 26.
I'll say Xcode 26. I installed it right away. It's not different. It's Xcode. I'm glad they put that feature in. They did improve their own model for doing code completion, but at the same time, I'm using Copilot, so I didn't even notice. I didn't even bother to install their local model. Wow. Yeah, I know, but it's like you get used to a certain standard. So we were talking about like it's okay to use a small language model, but when you get used to like, ChatGPT 4.1 or whatever it's called these days, you just that's the one you want.
You so do. Swift Span, we got Span.
Span.
Hey, I know that. I've heard of that. I was like, wow, I know something. Can
I tell you, the most frustrating part about using Swift when I was first learning Swift is it is a compiled language. It's supposed to be a native language, so you would think it could do pointers well. But some uh, architecture astronaut got involved with how pointers work in
Mm.
Swift. And working with pointers and raw memory in Swift is just the most tedious, ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life. I cannot believe any of that design made it through reviews. So there's like 6 different classes you're supposed to use just to access raw memory pointers. And it's mind boggling. The whole idea is for safety, but as we all know, safety does not exist. So it's all just a little fancy game we all play. Anyway, they threw away all that junk and introduced the span type. And thank you, Swift, for stealing another C# feature. It's great. It's much better than their ridiculous pointer system they had before. Their pointer system, absolutely no one knew how to use that pointer system. Even the pointer system, like you create a buffer over a known good pointer, you succeed at that, and yet when you try to access the pointer, it can still return a nullable value. You're like, what? It's valid memory. You already verified it's valid memory, and you're still going to give me nullable types back? So I'm just happy they finally have a sane pointer system, and it's in the span type. It's not exactly like the C# one, but gosh darn, it's pretty close. And it's just a far more sane pointer system in Swift. So good on them for recognizing that architecture astronaut was just off in space and they needed to redo that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was pretty cool. I
They finally
also
have.
go
Sorry,
ahead.
I
No,
have to introduce the next one because it's really important to me. They finally have an embedded web browser that you can put into a Swift
and
UI code. Do you know how many
I know.
janky, poorly implemented Swift UI web browsers I've done? I'll tell you, 4, and they're all terrible. Each
Didn't
one
you
of them
just
is
didn't you
terrible,
just
and
do one for the boat app?
I did it for the boat app. I did it for my Vision app because it's 2025. You're going to have to put some web content in your app at some point. That's just how the world works these days. Even if it's just authentication or something like that, you're going to need a web view. So bravo to them finally figuring out that Swift UI needs a web view. I haven't checked just how much you can play around because the old integrated WK web view, you can do so many sophisticated
Yeah.
things, injecting JavaScript and just taking over that website and throwing away all the security protocols that they put in place.
Yeah.
Knowing Apple, they probably kept some of that, but it's pretty cool that that finally, hashtag finally. And like I said, there's a lot of hashtag finallys here that they just put a stupid web browser in Swift UI.
I want to talk about the web. There was another piece of technology and thing that I knew, which is WebAssembly, and Swift is coming to WebAssembly, not WASI
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, but like WebAssembly. We've been running C# in the browser for a while. Now you can run Swift in the browser. I'm not exactly sure who all is doing that, but you can
Yeah,
do it now.
and actually, you've been able to do it for the last couple of years. It's kind of funny. Apple ships, well, they don't ship, but the Swift compiler that they ship with Xcode and like the iOS SDK and the macOS SDK had this turned off. But if you just
Mm,
went to the Swift website and downloaded the Swift compiler, you've always actually been able to generate WebAssembly because Swift compiles down into native code, and we've had native code to WebAssembly for basically a decade now.
that's true.
Um, yeah, so it's not a big deal in some respects because it was always generating LLVM, and LLVM has always been able to generate WebAssembly. The big deal is they're finally not taking it out, not removing it. So it's probably gone through some QA analysis and all that. Like you said, I'm not sure who would do that. I don't think there's too many people outside of the iOS and macOS world using Swift. But good for them. If they want the language to survive, it's got to work on more platforms than just their own. So good for
Yeah.
them.
I thought that was pretty cool. A bunch of other
And some
Swifty stuff.
concurrency improvements to Swift,
Oh,
but
yeah.
my God, no one can. They have the await keyword. Everyone uses the await keyword. All the other concurrency stuff in Swift is mind-bogglingly complicated and half-baked. So that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So they keep trying to make it a little more baked, but maybe it's 3/4 baked now.
Think about taking Swift to places that it's been able to or shouldn't go or is going or might go soon. They talk about Swift for the server. which is cool. However, what they actually did, which kind of was finally people figured out when they said it, because they got to give about 10 seconds, is they created native macOS containerization. It's a command line tool to help you make containers and run containers. Now, what that actually means,
Linux containers. Yeah.
Linux containers, thank you. What that actually means is that you no longer need Docker on your machine.
Yeah, poor Docker. Even on Linux, you never really needed Docker. That it was all just using built-in Linux namespace re-registration. But Mac got awesome virtualization support years ago. It's actually very easy to spin up a VM, even from a sandboxed app. You can spin up a VM. So this is really just them improving the user experience. The real question is, will the VS Codes out there and the Kubernetes out there take advantage of this new low-level feature? Because this is a low-level feature. Devs can use it, but it's not like it's being deployed to user machines or anything. And Mac is more of a user-focused environment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I've had that for being like a dev thing. I think foundation models, and I think this was actually pretty cool. Yeah, what I would love to see is like the VS Code container extensions on Mac integrate into this to give me a nice GUI to be able to do stuff and run stuff. And so for example, when I do a .NET publish to a container, it can just like run. I can just run it immediately, right? From VS Code, for example.
Now, the one thing I didn't catch was because they really deprecated Intel. This is going to be the last version of Mac OS that runs on Intel. It wasn't at all clear to me if this could run x86 containers or if they have to be ARM containers. Did you catch that one way or the other?
I did not. On my machine, both my Windows machine and my Mac machine with Docker, if I build x86, x64 images, I get a little icon that's like, hey, this is running, slower, you should do an ARM one. I did not catch that. And I bet that it is only ARM. That's my assumption.
Yeah.
That's my assumption, but I can't guarantee it, but that's
Wait, please, can I do the next one? Because this is very important and dear to my heart. It would not be a WWDC. Let me start over. Okay. James, how many ML neural network libraries ships with the current Apple SDK?
Did you jump back to the top of our document?
Perhaps I did. We are not talking about foundation models. I'm talking about machine learning. Like, I have this idea of I want to create a new neural network and I want to do training on my machine. How many libraries does Apple currently have to do that?
I believe that you told me they have 28 different libraries for you to do that.
Yeah, well, that's my joke, because every WWDC, it's not a WWDC unless Apple announces yet another machine learning library. I think the current number is 5, and guess what? This year, now there's 6. There is yet another machine learning library, MLX, which is, oddly enough, a cross-language library. So MLX is a new way to develop neural network models, train them, do everything. It's basically a ripoff of PyTorch. So if you're at all comfortable writing Python neural networks, you'd be very comfortable using MLX. The big difference is, unlike PyTorch, this one is optimized for Macs. I have tried to run Torch on Macs before. It works, but there's always some incompatibility. Some operation doesn't always work correctly. So this is hopefully a library that works very well on Apple Silicon Macs. But more importantly, why this is in the Swift section, they also made that same library also work with Swift. So almost as easily as writing Python code, you can write Swift code to do all your neural network training.
That's cool.
That was very smart of them to make the library actually cross-language like that. Not cross-platform, cross-language. And that's not something they often do. Basically, I'd say this might even be the first, unless someone can check me on that. But it's pretty cool, because I myself use PyTorch for all my neural network stuff, and honestly, it's a pretty easy code change between the two. So I might even try training a few networks on MLX and see how it goes. Because I
That'd be
still like
cool.
doing the machine learning part of AI, even though everyone else is just using LLMs.
Give
But
me the model. Just give me the
I
model.
want to make my own math functions. It's fun. So I'm actually excited about that one.
Well, you know what I was going to ask you? On the foundation model, you can't give it data for it to like learn. If you had like, let's say a bunch of PDFs or a bunch of text, I guess you could feed it into the prompt, but you can't just be like, here's a bunch of PDFs and then index it and like get it back. Like kind of like train the model. You can't like,
Right.
you can't do that,
No.
right? Okay.
Right. So there's multiple things in what you just said. No, you cannot fine tune, but that's kind of an obvious feature. So I could see them adding fine tuning in the
Private
future.
fine tuning. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Private fine
And it's
tuning.
not multimedia right now either. That's the other thing you're asking. So, like, a PDF can be represented in two ways. You can extract all the text out of it. In that case, yeah, you can just throw it into the prompt,
Yeah.
whatever. But you can't give it images. It's not multimedia. It doesn't understand how to encode images and think about images and things like that. So those are basically low-hanging fruit for them to add to it in the future. But no, today it does not support neither fine-tuning nor multimedia.
That's cool.
There's
I was thinking
ways to
like,
work around it, but yeah.
because I use 4.1 Nano for my feedback flow big analysis application, and like I bet if I gave it, I'm interested in the context window too. If I gave it 1,000 YouTube comments, if I could do the big generation summarization, give me back a markdown file or something with it, because you did
And
small prompts, but I'm interested in the
yeah,
depth of it
absolutely.
basically.
I kind of want to do a second analysis. My first analysis was just getting to know, like, does this thing work at all?
Yeah,
Because I'm very comfortable with the llama models. I know exactly what they're capable of. So I just wanted to get a feel for what the models were capable of. But Apple was very reticent to give hardcore, cold numbers on how big is the context window, what will the processing speed be
yeah,
once you get up to 4K tokens, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of want to do a performance review next. I wanted a functionality review first and then performance after that.
totally. All right, I want to. This will maybe be the last section because we've been going for an hour, and then we'll do a final TL wrap up.
Yeah.
Because they talked about a lot of Swift UI, and they talked about native frameworks and the SDKs and how important they are. I forget the guy who's in their dev relations who this was his section. He threw every cross-platform framework under the bus, basically.
Ouch,
And
yeah.
I, as a cross-platform mobile developer for all my days, I don't quite. I understand why he's saying that and why native frameworks and native SDKs. And I love native stuff, 100%. So I don't know who exactly he was throwing under the bus. Is it just all of them? He doesn't care. Is it web specifically that I was throwing under the bus? Was it something else? But
Mostly
basically,
Google.
or Google. Yeah, exactly. Was it just, yeah. So anyways, they're like native frameworks or we don't care. And I was like, oh man, are they about to like do something crazy? But they didn't. But basically they went in and they're like, Swift UI is amazing. We have, web content and apps, new APIs, rich text editing, a bunch of performance, 3D charts, a lot of faster loading stuff, a bunch of 3D stuff that you care about that I don't care about. A lot of vision stuff, even though I think vision's dead, but who knows? So
Wow, you just
Vision
threw
2.
that one. Talking about shots fired. Was it React people shots fired or
There
Vision in
was
there?
there
Okay.
was there was more Vision OS than there was Siri at this conference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Poor Siri. Yeah. It's funny. Everyone was talking about that, and that one kind of slipped past me. I didn't catch it quite the way everyone else caught it. But in reviewing it, I don't think he didn't say anything that we haven't said on this podcast 100 times. Like, yeah, you can have a more you can write a cross-platform app and it will work and it'll be fine. But you got to put more effort into each platform if you want to take advantage of those platform specific features. I think what
Totally.
Apple's just in that funny place where they are defending an operating system. It's funny
Yeah.
because you don't see Microsoft doing this with Windows that much anymore. But they are drawing a line in the sand and they're like, oh, we on this side are the native people and we're providing this experience to the users and all that. The truth is, with cross-platform, you can provide 95% of that experience. and then it's that last 5%. Yeah, it's a bit of work. And he didn't say cross-platform is a bad idea. Never said
Totally.
that.
Totally.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
He just said you end up writing more code than you think you would have. It was a
Yeah.
very odd way to phrase it, because it's still less code than if you wrote, say, a purely Java and a purely Swift app and had to rewrite that code base twice. No, no.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Cross-platform is still way less code.
Yeah. 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 That's a good
But
point. Yeah.
so
The
what he said
unsaid
is
part.
what he said is you just end up writing a little more code than you think. And
That's true.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We've always said that. Like, because
Always.
whenever I would do my cross-platform code sharing comparisons, I'm like, here, I was able to code share 90% with Android, but only 80% with iOS. That's because I would have a lot of iOS specific code because I wanted my apps to look fantastic on
Yeah.
iOS. And that's all it is. Um, fact
Yeah.
of the matter is, cross-platform counts for more than what native can make up for. You have to be a weirdo like me. You have to be really dedicated to the platform to go all in and say, I'm just going to write this app only for this platform. If you
Yeah.
throw out the web, throw out Android, and focus only on iOS, great. You can make a living. I swear to you, you can make a living.
Yeah.
But every person who has an Android phone, which is a shockingly large amount of the world, and every web person out there is going to say, where's my version of the app?
Yeah.
And then some competitor is going to copy your iOS app for the web. They're going to copy your iOS app for Android, and they're going to release it. So, it's up to you, honestly. Do you want to write a very specific native app, or do you want to write cross-platform? The world's not black and white. It's not one is good and
No.
the other is bad.
Totally.
It's just
Agreed.
pros and cons all the way down.
And it's always been, and you and I've said it, I've been doing obviously multi-platform development for like 14 years. You and I've always said it. I've been advocate for 11 plus years. I've always said it. Pick the right tool for the job. That could be native Swift. That could be Flutter. That could be .NET MAUI. That could be Kotlin. That could be you could be web. What is your app? What is your integrations? What are the things? What do the platforms let you do? Can you get down to go do that stuff? Can you do a binding? Can you do a thing? Like that is the question to ask yourself at the end of the day, right? So interesting. Oh, my Edge browser now has a VPN built in. It's right there.
And it's all half truths too. So like there were a lot of features that were Swift only features in this release. But you know what, James? I can write a C front end to those Swift only features. I can write a little Swift library that exports a bunch of C functions, and I can consume them in my C# app. It's no big deal. And so all of this, these are all Turing complete programming languages. Literally any of these languages can do what any of the other languages do. But it's in some part it's marketing, it's some part of it them defending the platform, and it's some part honesty. Like, yeah, like you can write a first class experience on iOS more easily in Swift UI than you can in React Native. That's facts. Those are truths. But you're not going to get an Android app out of that. You're not going to get a web app out of that. And those are things you got to give up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's trade-offs. It's always trade-offs. I only want to say one other thing about games. They do have this new Mac remote developer tools from Windows, which I find very interesting. I want to try out. So you can I don't know, I think from Windows, I don't know if you can debug to a Mac and see it working or I don't know. I don't know what it is, but the name is intriguing. They mentioned it. Yeah.
I caught that and I was like, oh, file that away for looking what the heck they're talking about up later.
Yeah.
I didn't fully grok it, but yeah, they're obviously Windows is the gaming platform right now. So they're still pushing to get game developers to release apps for Mac.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And they did a lot of game stuff. That was good. But it's not my preferred place. But yes.
I love Metal.
Have a Mac.
I have to say, and this is not me being an Apple fanboy. I've used all the languages: WebGPU, Metal, DirectX. I've used them all. I love Metal. Metal's beautiful, but honestly, it's really just time and materials. Like, you write your game with one GPU shader language. It's a pain in the butt to port it over to another GPU shader language. So it's just getting those people on board.
Well, they announced Metal 4 with all sorts of good stuff, right? You could do a whole podcast on Metal 4. But to your point is like what they did is they brought out, CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk 2077, which is fantastic. And they talked about how they implemented Metal 4 and blah, 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 which is cool because I just literally watched a documentary, a short video, like 5-minute video with CD Projekt Red about how they ported Cyberpunk 2077 to the Nintendo Switch 2. And like all the custom work they did, and they had to do all the, like, guess what? A huge game company with all this money with a super popular game. I guess they can do the porting work to doing the thing, but like, how does Frank Krueger do it? Right. Like, so, that's, I think, the challenge that they have is what you're saying, right? That, and Metal is it's on the Metal, which is great. And, just like DirectX and these other things. And like, but that's the problem is like, what's that? So like, again, if you're an indie developer, are you going to go through that? Or are you just going to use,
Unreal or Unity,
Godot or whatever,
and a
mono game, right?
Abstract, whatever, and just cross compile to the other platforms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Struggle. So just like the multi-platform stuff, there's trade-offs with everything, right? Are you a quadruple A company, game company? Then yeah.
Do you have a $200 million budget or not? Basically,
they announced last thing that. So I think the three things I'm excited about: foundational models, containerization, new terminal. Because I've complained about the terminal on this podcast, Frank.
What are you people doing with your terminals? My God, I've been using terminals on Unix since. By the way, shout out to anyone who's been. Since like I was using 1970s terminals in the 1990s. So I don't know. Do I just have lower expectations than everyone else? The terminal's fine, but I guess 24-bit color, yippee dee doo
da. The Windows terminal is just so good, and then there's the shell inside of it, obviously, like PowerShell.
Two different things.
PowerShell, everyone, two different things, but the terminal obviously helps the shell do different things as well, right? Because like if you want to do certain things, you need a terminal to support stuff. So anyways, I just think it's nice to get an upgraded terminal experience out of the box that's there. I mean, that's what Windows did. You had CMD for a long time with the command line. I guess that's a shell, but it's inside of a terminal. You know what I mean? I don't understand.
It was both, actually. CMD.exe was both, so it was really blurring the borders.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So there you go. In general, and then Windows Terminal is pure bliss and magic. So one day, and it's in the box. It's in the box. You know what I mean? And like, here's the thing, Frank. What's in the box matters.
It
matters. Okay. And I've talked to a lot of people in the last few months, either in the box or from the vendor. Matters. I buy Apple products, I buy Microsoft products, I buy Nintendo products because of what is in the box and what is from the vendor. It's super important. That's why you buy certain companies. People are like, oh, well, you got your Mac on a desktop, and you're like, just install these 18 different extensions from all these different. No, I don't mind giving $10 to different developers for their great work that they've done. Put it in the box. Like, I'm saying Windows Terminal is amazing, right? Now, if it's not there, you have PowerToys. PowerToys from Microsoft is the catch-all, does everything that you want. It's amazing, right? Again, it's not in the box. It should basically be in the box, in my opinion. But it is all these amazing works. It's open source. It's really fantastic. It's so good. But again, I look at my taskbar up top, and I have 85 different widgets to control things that just seem so silly to me. So all I'm saying is, Apple, hook up your developers. It's a developer conference. Like, that's why I'm excited about Terminal, because it's a developer thing. It's not a consumer thing. Consumers don't care about Terminal. I care about Terminal. They don't care about containerization. I could care about containerizations. Maybe consumers do care about the foundational models, but they don't care about how you're going to call it, which is this nice, beautiful API that they built. Give us really good developer things. That's what I want at the end of the day. And like, well, yes, I agree with you that there's a lot of enterprisey cool stuff. Like, if you dive through what we talked about at Build, there was amazing Windows developer stuff, AI Foundry Local, the Windows AI stuff that was going on, all the new Visual Studio Code stuff, like a lot of there's tons of AI cloud powered stuff. Yes. but tons of that stuff too, whether it be with GitHub Copilot or anything like that. Like there's tons of stuff built in. Give me all those goodies in the, I'm a developer. Don't forget about me, Apple. And like, yes, I think that's the thing is like, you have tons of videos about how to make your this or that. Like, where's the developer experience? Like, that's the thing that I think is missing from it. Maybe Mac OS is amazing on a desktop for general consumers. I just think it misses the boat for me as a developer of how I use a desktop machine. And that's what I've been disappointed about. I just haven't been able to figure out. It's been 7 months now, and I'm still like, I give it a C. I give my Mac Mini a C, and it's very disheartening because I love this hardware, the look of it, the power of it. It is literally unbelievably amazing. It is everything that I want out of a desktop machine. It is so good. And like, I would maybe even do the Mac Studio at some point because it is perfect. It's so beautifully small, silent, got right amount of ports, everything I wanted, everything just works. But the vibes for me using stuff are all off. And it upsets me. It tears apart my heart because I don't want it to be that way. And I'm not the biggest Apple fanboy in the entire world. I'm not like you. I haven't been an Apple person my entire life, but they make great devices and they do make great software. But there's certain things that I'm just like, are just missing. And again, maybe it's because I haven't been an Apple person forever, and I digress. But I do feel like there's some things like the terminal, like the containers, like it gets me excited. Like, oh yeah, okay, you're speaking to me. Like you said, you felt heard. Like, oh, they heard me. They're like, oh, 10 seconds on a terminal. Oh, perfect. That's great. I don't even think it was even in. I think it was, and we did a lot more. And there's a little like terminal like little box. Oh, a new terminal. Look at that. Like, okay. Anyways, soapbox rant done.
Okay, good. I just want to remind you that you can now resize Windows on the iPad. So you might want to just give the old iPad a try there. Maybe the vibes will be a little bit better, Mr. James.
Could be. All right. Anyways, let us know what you thought of WWDC. Check us out on the YouTube at Merge Conflict FM. Check us out at mergeconflict.fm. Write, subscribe, like, do all the things. All right, that's going to do for this week's podcast. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.